Rosa Rosales was born in 1944 on the south side barrios of San Antonio in a 3-room house.
I had a beautiful childhood. I never realized I was poor till I was 18 years old because my father did such a great job. We were 6 girls and my mother and my father. And he was a laborer all his life.
Rosa's parents were both involved with La Unión Fraternal Latinoamericana, a volunteer organization which helped provide social and economic assistance to its members.
My father started as just a member, then he became secretary, then he became treasurer, and then he became the president for 25 years.
Rosa's first experience of discrimination was on her first day of school.
And I remember, since I didn't know English, that Mrs. Smith was a teacher of the first grade, and she kept saying Mexicans, 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 and making faces. So then after a while she stepped out and another teacher came in and they took us out, and that was Miss Evans, and she was a beautiful teacher. So I believe that Miss Smith did not want to teach Mexicans. So that was my first encounter of discrimination.
Rosa attends Burbank High School.
In high school, there was a couple of things you might say. They wouldn't let us speak Spanish. And that's a history here in Texas at the beginning of those years that you weren't allowed to speak Spanish, only in the Spanish class. And if you did speak Spanish, they would punish you by taking you to the office. It didn't happen to me, but they used to hit your hands with rulers. They used to put you on the corner for speaking Spanish. So that was my first encounter, that you couldn't speak Spanish. You couldn't speak your language.
Rosa graduates in the top of her class, but does not attend college.
I had an advisor, Mrs. Lubbock, and she came one day and told me, it was my senior year, and she told me, Rosa, you have a good grade point average, which I had an A- through my 7th through the 12th grade. She says, would you like to go to college? And my first reaction was, no. And she says, okay, thank you. And so that's what I feel now, that we can make a difference when you have counselors and teachers and administrators in the high school or wherever that would give more encouragement to our children to continue their education.
In 1964, Rosa boards a bus that would change her destiny.
I was coming home from this San Antonio Business School. And as I took the bus, it was late, it was about 10 o'clock at night. And this young man gets on the bus, and the bus was almost empty.
I was in the Army, and it was my last day of leave when I got on this bus, and there was this skinny little Mexican girl sitting there all by herself. I decided to sit next to her, and I started talking.
He just started talking about very good compliments about this and that. You must have been a cheerleader, you must have this and this and that. And then he told me, and I don't know why I did it, but he said, because that wasn't that I usually would do those things. He said, I'm in the service and I'm leaving. I would like to have your address to write you, and I'll be out in a month and this and this and that. So, I did give him my address, and that's how we met on the bus.
2 years later, Rosa and Rodolfo were married.
I was just a housewife. My husband got a job at the post office, and that was it.
In 1973, Rosa's husband accepts a Ford Fellowship to the University of Michigan and convinces Rosa to also enroll.
With his encouragement, I did enroll at the university, applied, and was accepted to the University of Michigan. And education to me has made a world of a difference.
During her academic education, she was also learning about social justice.
So we formed what we call the Third World Minority Women Caucus. We had women of all races, of all colors, and with our information, we actually called for a meeting with the president of the University of Michigan. And lo and behold, to our surprise, he grants us a meeting. We go and actually we just present the documentation, and the doors were open. Gave in, and money started floating to minority women to get a higher education.
5 years after leaving San Antonio, it was time to come home.
Before we came back, there was a brochure. It talked about the River Walk, the Alamo, the missions, and all the beautiful things about San Antonio. But there was something that blared out to me that I could not forget. And that he said, "Come to San Antonio. There is a pool of cheap labor." And that raised a red flag to me because I knew the cheap labor was the minorities, Latinos and blacks. So I come back with that in mind, trying to see if I can get involved in the workers, the rank and file really getting better representation. So we come back, and this is when I hear about LULAC.
When she returned back from college, she was a totally different person. She was now involved in the movement.
Rosa joins LULAC, the largest and oldest Hispanic civil rights organization in the United States, and for the next 30 years, fights for rights of all Latinos.
What impressed me about Rosa when I was sitting on the city council 30 years ago was her coming before our council and speaking truth to power, talking about the workers, talking about their needs, and having people be so uncomfortable because those were not things people wanted to hear.
And we were responsible actually for an ordinance that addressed the issue of affirmative action of minorities here in the city of San Antonio. Then, of course, there was an issue about the working class people here in San Antonio, the cheap labor. So there was myself and Angie, the other lady with the hat, and we involved another woman, Maria Valenzuela, and Sam Alvarado, the male, that knew about unions, and he had this beautiful concept of starting an independent association to help the workers.
While in LULAC, Rosa goes to work for union organizations, representing workers in hearings and at the picket lines.
Although she's a small woman in stature and a very pleasant person, when it comes to defending other people's civil rights, she is a pit bull.
Rosa was stirring things up in Texas and getting noticed. But her hats were also getting attention.
The hat became a symbol of who I was. It became a symbol when in the union, because it was so hot when you used to go to the fields, at the different fields that they had the workers that collected the garbage. And so we started using hats. So it was identified, here comes the union. They used to call us Las Gorrudas, the Mad Hatters, and all kinds of names. But in a way, I always felt it was a compliment. And even in LULAC, when they see the hat, they identify as the Miss LULAC. Here comes LULAC with a big old hat. What kind of hat is she going to wear? Is it going to be a big hat? By the way, I like big hats, but it did become a symbol of who I was and representing LULAC.
As state director of LULAC, Rosa filed over 100 lawsuits.
But throughout the years that I have known Rosa, she has always been a warrior for the underdog, always there to correct the wrongs.
In 2006, Rosa is elected to the highest position in LULAC and served 4 years as president of that organization.
LULAC litigated more during her 4 years as national president than we had under any previous administrations. And Rosa was able to bring together the different coalitions consisting of Black America, Asian America, gay and lesbian America. She was able to bring everybody together so that when we fought a case, we fought it together. We weren't out there by ourselves. We fought it together.
As a young woman, I looked toward Rosa as an example. You see, for us, Latinas weren't elected to public office and weren't in positions of any sort of power. But Rosa could have been an elected official, but she chose to voice concerns for the people, those who need equality and education and in job training. But she was an example and a mentor to me and encouraged me to step out on that political realm.
Rosa has received numerous honors and awards for her dedicated service to community, including American GI Forum Leadership Award, the LULAC Women of the Year Award, and the Cesar Chavez March for Justice Award.
Rosa Rosales is a fighter for our national Latino community. As long as I've known her, and that's better than 35 years, she's been a fighter for working people, for women, for our community, for poor people. And when she became president of LULAC, she did nothing less than re-energize the entire organization. an organization which over the years has been very important to our community but has had its periods of ups and downs under Rosa, was once again in a fighting frame of mind, fighting against budget cuts, fighting for fair electoral districts, fighting for immigration reform, fighting for education improvements. The best single word description I know for Rosa Rosales: a fighter for our people.
Today, Rosa continues to fight on behalf of the Hispanic community. She is the founder and director of the National Association of Public Employees and is a strong advocator for education.
My message is go on to higher education, because if this old lady, as a late bloomer, enters the University of Michigan at the age of 30 with 3 kids, I think that if I could do it, anybody can make it. And education does open the doors. I used to be very timid and shy, like I've said before, and all of a sudden I became a fighter. I became a lioness, wanting to fight discrimination, wanting to make a difference. And that is so important, because education no one can take away from you.
Mother, I know we've had to share you with the community for many years. I wouldn't change a thing. You are my inspiration.
Hi, Mom. We love you very much. Nico loves you very much. And thank you for being a very big influence of my life and always being there for me. I don't know what I would do without you. We love you very much. Right, mijo?
To say that you have been my inspiration would be an understatement. You are my mentor, and I love you dearly.
But in the end, Rosa belongs to the community. We only borrow her. And we will always be part of her. But she belongs to the community.
Rosa Rosales has made a lasting impression in the hearts and minds of her community. For over 3 decades, she dedicated her life to fighting for the underserved, and the community as a whole has benefited tremendously.
But I really feel that I was just doing what the good Lord put me on this earth to do, and that's to help people.
On behalf of the Board of Directors and the staff of the United States Leadership Institute and the 29th Annual United States Hispanic Leadership Conference, we salute you.